Well, thank you to everyone for being here, and thank you, Sharad, for being here and sharing some of the Sprecher journey. Last time we had you at the M&A Forum was March 12th, 2020, which, if that date rings familiar, it was the morning after Tom Hanks and the NBA shut down and all of that. We were all just kind of standing a little farther apart from each other. And a lot has happened since then. Kevin just told us a bunch of what's happened for Sprecher, but obviously a few events in the world since then. Let's back up and start with that initial deal to acquire Sprecher Brewing. How did that come about? How did it come about that you were buying a craft beer company in Glendale in 2020?
Yeah. So thanks, Arthur. Yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. My American dream sort of came true. I came here from India for graduate school 30 years ago, worked at large companies, went to UWM and Northwestern, worked at GE, Samsung. I'd never worked for a small company, never been an entrepreneur. And suddenly I meet Randy Sprecher at a social gathering like this in, I think, May or June of 2019. He was in his mid-70s, wanted to retire, and I, in my, zeal or excitement said, hey, Randy, if I put this deal together, will you sell it to me? This was Saturday night after a bunch of drinks. He calls me on Sunday morning. I'm like, gosh, I had too much to drink last night. So he said, let me show you the brewery. And it was the oldest craft brewery since Prohibition in Milwaukee. I just fell in love with it. It was Sunday, it was mostly closed, but there were tours that started. And I didn't know how to put a deal together, but I sort of had ideas. And getting debt and equity. And a man I met here who helped me out, Joe Fazio from Commerce State Bank, I called him and he came to my house. He said, Sharad, I've been through this journey. I'll get you the debt, you raise the equity, and it's a journey, and that's how it happened. But 2 months after we bought it, COVID hit and everything shut down. So it was hard, yeah.
So what was that journey like? So the deal closes in January of 2020, and now you own a brewery. So what was that kind of process like of getting your arms around just day-to-day operations and figuring out, okay, where to from here, that led to all the stats that Kevin just listed off?
Yeah, it sounded a lot better when Kevin said, but yeah, thank you, Kevin. Look, you've got to have a core skill. Whoever, you're a buyer or seller, you got to have a good, the three folks who sponsored, banker. You need a good law firm. Reinhardt is a great firm. In fact, one of their exes, Dan Brink, helped us do the deal. And then a CPA firm. An M&A firm also helps if you don't know how to do the deal. But then it's to put it all together. And it sounds easy, but it takes, I thought it would be a couple of months. I'd left my job and I was doing it full time. It took 7 or 8 months. And I heard that's pretty fast. I thought it'd be faster. It's complicated because the other side has different motivations. Randy Sprecher was the primary owner. He was solving for something else. He had owners. There was a financial investor. There was a lady whose husband had invested 30 years ago, and he was a bar owner, and he had passed away. She was solving for something else. She lived in, I think, Cedarburg. A letter would have to go in the mail. We couldn't even email her. There was no proper, and she would have to mail it back, the postage stamp. So it's a lot of different things, and you've got to put a team together and do it in a step-by-step manner. There are people here who can tell you how to do it a lot better than I, but having done it a few times, it's important that you follow sort of a playbook, and then it works.
Just kind of maybe from the psychological element, that understanding that each different party is solving for something else. How do you kind of navigate through that and not get frustrated that every time we need to correspond with this woman in Cedarburg, we got to send a letter off and wait for someone to come back, and or that Randy's got different priorities in this than you did. How do you deal with that kind of on the mental side of it?
That's the hardest part. So you got to be very resilient and have the eye on the ball. What are you solving for? The terms change, right in the end, in the last minute. The deal was supposed to be closed several months, and some other investor would come up with his demands. He was solving for taxes. Somebody else solved. So you got to keep the eye on the ball and know what your, look, we got a really good deal, right? It had real estate, it had a great brand, it was unloved, the brand wasn't taken care of, we had not sort of run it in a very professional manner, and so we got lucky. And we knew what we were solving for. Our soda, our root beer was the main thing, and beer was fine, but we were going to build it nationally with soda. So you have to have that. And then deal with, if you have a good team, you deal with it in steps and keep that eye on the, you got to have a person on each side, the buyer side and the seller side, who are sort of the primary negotiators, and keep it that way. If you have 7 people negotiating, it doesn't work. Try to find that one person you can really bond with, and it's a journey, it's a relationship, you know. Yeah.
So we do have an opportunity for audience questions, and you can text them in. My cell phone number is in the program, and it'll be on the screen from time to time. We got one already. After you close, what was one thing you would have done differently in hindsight?
There are many lessons, you know. The big one is people. You know, you've heard culture or eat strategy for lunch, right? You can have the best strategy and all the plans, but you got to look at the culture and the people. And sometimes you wait too long to make changes, but don't be scared. If you are buying a company or you're in a group of investors, and there's an old school of doing things, and you have a vision and you want to take it a different direction, you got to make those tough calls quickly. So sometimes waiting too long doesn't help. So it's a tough one, you know, because people are watching you. They're watching every move, every action you're taking. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, you know, growth of, like we said, tripling of sales, massive distribution increase, all the things. When you started out, where did M&A kind of fit in your initial vision of how you would grow Sprecher? Was M&A always planned to be part of it, or has it evolved as a role in the strategy for the company?
It was not, actually. Believe it or not, we thought the core brand, and Sprecher brand, you know, people have, like the Harley-Davidson folks, people have Sprecher Griffin tattoos on their body. So they really believe, at least in the Milwaukee regional market. So it's a good brand. But how do you translate it nationally to the East Coast, West Coast? I believe craft soda is where craft beer was 20 years ago. People's tastes are discerning. They want an energy drink. They want a healthy for you. They want a low-cal. They want a hydration. And then we realized when we started talking to buyers at Walmart or Costco or Sendex or Menards or whatever, they'd say, hey, do you have this? Well, we can make one for you. And that was my first mistake, besides I've done many of them, but you learn from your mistakes. We created a zero-calorie Sprecher soda. I did my MBA thing. I learned it in big companies. Oh, what's growing the fastest? Well, 0 calorie. What do people want? They want monk fruit, you know, whatever. It's slim cans are the fastest growing cans. All it, check. Well, create a liquid and start selling it, Sprecher 0. Guess what the sales were? That's me. So you've got to understand your consumer. We're in a consumer industry. It's an affordable treat. People are drinking Sprecher for an affordable, it's a treat you give yourself. It's real honey, it's cooked and fire brewed in the same kettles. And so as we started building a brand was so much harder in a new category that if you could acquire one for a good value, and this was sort of getting lucky, or we had a trick, we could, shelf space in a Kroger or a Walmart is so expensive, or a Quick Trip. But here you can buy a brand for whatever you pay, 1.5 times revenue, and you get that shelf space already, so you've already done well. And if I am at a higher multiple than that, I'm creating shareholder value immediately. So that was the play. And then we did the first one with WBC. We got a bunch of brands, and that worked really well in Chicago with Green River, and we got, you know, Costco, we got a couple of, and then we said, let's do it again, and then do it again. And then suddenly good deals came. Now you can get to be a deal junkie and be careful there too, because you got to look at cash. So it's a balance. But, yeah.
Another audience question that does kind of go back to the Sprecher deal, and obviously you were on the buy side of this, but they were wondering how many people were in the know during the due diligence from the sell side of that transaction. Do you know?
So most sellers and buyers too, but mostly sellers want to keep it very quiet. You know, it's people. You're hiring some of them, may not hire all of them. Our goal has been typically not to buy manufacturing capability. We have that here. A lot of our acquisitions have been primarily a brand and sales and a couple of marketing and salespeople. So we can bring production back to Wisconsin, bottles, cans, et cetera. So it's a smaller team, but it's a smaller company typically and they want to keep it very quiet because you're dealing with people. But sometimes they do bad by employees, because I literally just heard yesterday from one of the employees of the company we acquired last year. He said he did not know till the morning off or something. That's not good. You know what I mean? I mean, either he's going to lose his job or may get hired. You got to keep them in the know, at least the people who are going to get transitioned. And some of the responsibility, I take it upon myself. Maybe I tell too much. You got to be careful. You've got to let the core team and the people who are coming know for sure. You got to interview them, make them feel welcome. They're going to be part of our culture. That's important.
So let's maybe walk through some of the deals that you've done. You mentioned that first one that you did in the fall of 2021, acquired 6 different craft soda brands. I think Black Bear, that people might know from Oak Creek, WC. I guess, how did that come about, and kind of tell us a little more about that deal and how it got done?
Sure. So if you all know, Goose Island Brewery was a Chicago brewery, craft brewery, that also had soda. It had root beer. It got sold to Anheuser-Busch, Budweiser, many years ago. But its soda became an orphan, and this company, kind of a marketing salespeople, bought it. They co-packed, contract manufactured it at a different location, and they sold it regionally. They didn't put a lot of muscle behind it. They called it WBC. They couldn't call it Goose Island. And then they also acquired some of the other brands, like Black Bear, which had become dormant, a Wisconsin brand, and Green River they were selling. And we made a deal with them, which was an interesting deal. It was a little earn-out, some cash and some earn-out. And it worked out pretty good for all of us. They made more because it was an earn-out, because we grew the brand, and they made more and we made more. That was the first one, and I was kind of tiptoeing in, but it gave us a lot of shelf space, a lot of growth opportunity, bring production in-house. Since then, we learned how to do it. Of course, we made some mistakes there, too. It had some plastic and other things which we didn't do. So, yeah.
Next one was the Ula Lemon lemonade brand, which you acquired from Kona Gold Beverage I can talk today, in October of last year. So how'd that one come about? How'd that all get put together?
There was a smaller one even between that called Old Brooklyn. This was 2 years ago. But that was a small little Brooklyn brand from another one of those. We were doing co-packing for them for another thing, and we thought it had a regional appeal and a regional shelf space or points of distribution. That's a big thing in our industry. There are 1 million doors or points of distribution, and we were in less than 5,000 in Sprecher. Now we're up to 25, 30,000. 50,000 are what matters. Those are the Walmarts, the Costcos, the Menards, the Sendex, et cetera. Pick and say, we're there now. So Old Brooklyn helped us regionally, but then you're right, it was Ula Lemon, which was actually created here as a lemon brand and got bought by Kona Gold, a public company out of Florida. Didn't know how to run it. A total mess. And we bought it from them last year, yes.
So these ones were all kind of different brands you were acquiring. The other one you did last fall, Accent Manufacturing, packaging manufacturer in Germantown. So we're moving away from the brands here. This is a different thing. Why go into packaging as a deal as well?
Very fair question. So if you all, we consider our biggest strength is we are a vertically integrated brewery, production facility, bottling line, can line, kegging, warehousing, and sales. Unlike many of our competitors who co-pack at a different place, sell their marketing, salespeople, they don't even do. We do it all. What we lacked, what we found out was, have you seen these variety packs of Celsius or name any brand, Press or Zoa in a Costco or Walmart? It's 4 different brands for people to get a 12, 15 pack. It takes a lot. You have to make 4 different flavors, put it all together, put it in a little box. It seems easy, but it's a lot of work, and it's very manual. You'll have tens of people putting it in boxes by hand. That's not cost effective. We lacked that capability, and Sprecher customers were asking for that too. Jim Sorensen had built this good facility in Germantown, beautiful, almost 130,000 square feet. Zilber has that, and at the Richfield Park. For that reason, we bought or started acquiring that in September last year, and now we're working with the EDWC in Washington County to kind of build around it. Sure. Yeah. That gives us a new capability from our vertical integration standpoint.
Something you didn't have. And then just back in January, acquired an energy drink brand, Juvie, from 100 Thieves, which is a gaming and lifestyle brand. And comes along, now you have a chief marketing officer who came along with that deal, which I think actually he had told Ashley Smart on our team it was the Oola Lemon deal that put Sprecher on his radar and got that. So just tell us a little bit about that, the Juvie deal as well.
Yeah, so energy, since I guess Starbucks and now you heard Red Bull and then Monster and Bang, energy somehow, this category, which is basically caffeinated drinks, has got a lot of legs. People have started drinking as a pep, pick me up, various things, working out, etc. Higher cost, doesn't cost that much more to make, but gets us a lot higher price point, so better margins. Of course, there are the big boys there who pay a lot of marketing and trade spend. This brand was built by gamers, video gamers, Nate Schott and Sam Keen, who's now our CMO as a co-founder. They came from Red Bull. They thought, hey, why not us? Let's make a energy drink and get into there. They spent millions of dollars and realized it's a little bit harder than that, and literally said, Sharad, take it from us and help us do it. So it was a fair deal. It was a good deal. We hired a few of their people. Sam comes with it. He's an awesome marketing leader. He'll be our CMO. We'll try to bring him to Wisconsin, move from LA, which is a harder sell. But I said, wait, get your wife here when it's summer. But this winter hasn't been that bad, so he loved it. He might move here, so that's great.
Let's start the recruiting in June after the threat of snow is mostly gone.
That's right. Yeah.
An audience question, just kind of as we've rattled through the various deals you've done, what's kind of the vision of how all these brands get stitched together? Because like you said, there are folks with that Sprecher Griffin, as a tattoo. I have, personally have really fond memories of, getting a Sprecher at Pop's Custard in Menominee Falls. So what's the vision of how all these get stitched together into, into the Sprecher company?
So very good point. People say, we are spread too thin. We've got too many SKUs or product lines for a very small company. And that's a fair critique. And some of the investors are here too. I think Jeff and others will tell us that. And that's fair. The point is, as people's tastes become more discerning, why should the Cokes and the Pepsis out there have all of these brands? You may not even know the brand you're drinking of lemonade or energy or even a spiked or hard stuff is actually a bigger company behind it. They like to keep it like that. Keurig Dr. Pepper has IBC, A&W, Stewart's, many others. So when we go to a buyer in a retail outlet or a consumer, in one family you'd have the son or the father going to the gym or the mother consuming an energy drink before and a hydration drink after, and instead of drinking a Gatorade, which has got 200 calories or whatever, this can be 10 calorie, and it's oxygenated, it's got good stuff in there, for a rehab. And then you're drinking a treat and having a ice cream float with Sprecher. Sprecher is still our core. Our halo and our core brand is Sprecher, but we have these niches to round out our portfolio, all the way from full sugar, low cal, better for you, lemonade, energy, and hydration, and all of it and more, and that's the plan. Mm-hmm. And all make it here in a vertically integrated, use the same sales force and distribution network. Mm-hmm.
Another audience question, which was also one on my list, kind of getting down to the nitty-gritty of a lot of what this conference is about. I guess, how have you gone about both financing these deals and structuring them? You mentioned the earnout on the WBC deal. I guess, both sides of that. How have you gone about financing them? How are you structuring them?
Yeah, good question. So that's a big one. And the advantage of being a smaller or private company and working with mostly private companies, in fact, one we bought from a public company, but most of it were private, you can be very flexible. At least we can be very flexible. So last few deals have been pretty much all cash because they were really good bargains, right? Deal flow 2-3 years ago, it was a completely seller's market. As you know, interest rates were low, multiples were really high. It was insane, you know. So we had to do an earn-out kind of a deal because it was super expensive. So not a lot of cash. Then, as the interest rates started going up, the multiples started coming down, or at least there was a mismatch last year. Deal flow was about half, but it's coming better. So then you can do an all-cash deal for a very reasonable price. But it could be debt and equity. So now our Banker Summit Credit Union, we're also here, helped us out a little bit in some of the deal. Some it's investor raised money. Some it's a combination of that, and all of the above.
So
you can be very creative. Yeah.
Be creative and probably different from deal to deal, situation to situation. What are maybe some of the things kind of you're looking for in a potential target, or what are some of the things that can sour you on a deal and say, what I thought was a good opportunity, not so much?
Yeah, and it's hard to know. You think you know. You try to be kind of straight shooters. You're from the Midwest. Milwaukee is Milwaukee, middle. This is a Midwestern values. People are pretty straightforward and honest. Sometimes you got to check and do your due diligence. In one of the deals, we had an issue where the seller did not disclose they had some liens and many other issues with the brand. We tried to have a small holdback, but they did some pretty shady stuff. So you got to get legal involved and all that. But try to have a strong contract and protect yourself. But when you do a lot of deals, there's something going to go wrong somewhere. Just adapt to it, work with it. But that was very painful. It was really, really tough. It's never good. Yeah.
Is there anything kind of
dishonesty,
hindsight-wise that you could point to and say, oh, I could have seen that coming, but missed it? Or is it a matter of people, if people are going to be shady about something, then sometimes they're hard to get around?
People say, oh, if he or she's trying to go too fast, maybe there's something to it or not giving. I don't know, maybe I'm not that good, but it's hard. People are complex, right? Try to see the numbers, do your due diligence well, try to visit the location if you can, see the customer list, talk to the customers, get a kind of a 360 view. When they're not letting their employees talk to you, that's a red flag, at least the core team. When they're not giving you customer or other access, watch out for that. This one, we didn't see much of that. They disclosed and everything was supposed to be up, and you realize many months later, I wish I had a silver bullet, but you've got to look at. That's why having a team, accountants, legal, M&A, if you have a firm, it helps experience. Of course, you learn things from it. Yeah, customers. Yeah.
Another audience question. You talked about acquiring brands, products, distribution, people. Is there one that's a general priority, or is it kind of really based on current need or a specific deal fit?
Ours. So that's a very good question. What are you solving for as a buyer or a seller? I understand if you're a service provider, you're trying to make the deal for whatever reason. But if you're a buyer, are you solving for growth? Are you solving for profit? EBITDA, is it going to help you with synergy? Is it a synergistic buy for some reason? So ours is very clear. Our board is very all local, Andy, John, we're all about growth. We want to bring production here, bottling line can fill up our lines here, get our Midwestern people working, create those great jobs, and then sell all over the country and the world. That's our goal. So, a Sprecher sip on every lip. That's how we say it. So we want everybody to. So the brands we're acquiring is mostly non-production facilities. For others, it might be, hey, you're trying to buy production capacity, warehousing. Some are solving, and what are you solving for? Mm-hmm. That's the main goal, yeah.
Mm-hmm. How do you mentioned it's a critique you hear from folks sometimes about getting overextended. You've done these 4 or 5 deals, added lots of brands, just growing at the quick pace that we mentioned at the start. How do you guard against getting kind of overextended, especially overextended through the M&A process?
Guilty as charged. Yes. So if I had my CFO come here, he'd be cussing me out, and that. It's hard on the team, especially if you're doing it in-house. And eventually it all becomes in-house, right? You got to absorb the balance sheet, income statement. You've got to have the receivables, the payables. You got to have the sales team. You got to have the marketing. What's your brand architecture? It's taxing. The people who are coming in are also vulnerable. They're like, what is this company all about? Oh, Milwaukee-based brewery, and I'm a soda company out of LA. And then people who are already there, who is this new? So it is taxing, not just from a cash flow and all that other stuff. You got to be cognizant. But the sad part is you don't know where the deal's going to happen. Right? All of you have done a deal. It's not like you can time everything perfectly. You'd love to, but there's something that are multiple people involved, so you've got to give it, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Another audience question of, did you get reps and warranties insurance in any of these purchases, and did you have to actually use it?
All of them, and that's the part I'm trying to say, that for sure we have a pretty strong reps. That is the biggest red flag. If they don't want to do reps and warranty, that's walk away kind of thing, right? Your lawyer will tell you that too. But what happens is a tricky lawyer or tricky sales or buying, whoever it is, can sneak things in and disclose certain things in a certain way that may seem innocuous or easy, but it's not. That's what you got to watch out when you have this thing that, liens come out after a long time. They've tried to, So, yeah, that happens too.
Yeah. Kind of an
You have to get reps and warranties, yes. Simple answer.
Another audience question of, producing all these brands in Glendale, are you doing any co-packing? Kind of what are the implications for your space and employee needs here in Wisconsin as you guys keep adding? Are you going to max out at some point, or?
Oh, we've expanded. I mean, C.H. Coakley's here. We're renting 85,000 square feet from them. They're all here. We're trying to expand even further. We bought this, or leased this facility potentially at Germantown, 130,000 square feet. We're looking for more space, building a warehouse potentially. Production, we've added a new bottling line. It'll be installed in the next couple of weeks. A new can line we have put in. So the goal is to have this as our core. Once in a while, when we become big enough, we might have a West Coast co-packing and maybe a East Coast, but that's ways away.
Mm-hmm. Any guarding against fads, especially in the drink space? 1 week everyone's drinking kombucha, 1 week who knows what's next. How do you guard against getting sucked in by a fad?
You can call it guarding against, but that's our consumer. That's us. That's me. That's my son. That's you all. You remember there was this wine coolers, and then they went down, and hard seltzers went like that, and then RTDs are next, and energy drinks. So that is what the industry is, and it's happening. It is not about guarding against it. It is to tell where the puck is going. If you can, look at Carbless, right? We do a little bit of business with them from a variety packing standpoint. At German, they're killing it. They're doing a great job. Zoa got a lot of cash injection from Molson Coors, and it becomes like that. Now you got to watch out when that starts going down, but you got to get, if you're a small, mid-sized business, if you're a Coke, Pepsi, it's different, yeah? Mm-hmm.
Maybe a good one to end on. When you look back on that Saturday night conversation with Randy Sprecher's, what are you surprised by today? What's the good? What's the bad in this journey over the last 4 or 5 years?
It's the most humbling and gratifying experience of my life. Someone who comes from a different country, a third world country, and makes it here and sits with all this distinguished audience and talks to them. It's an honor. It's my dream coming true, my American dream. And my son knows that. I tell him every day, just the lottery of being born in America and having that opportunity. So I thank myself, pinch myself. It's hard. It's not going to be easy. Every day is a boulder being pushed up the hill. And you're going to have challenges every day. You are the janitor one day, you're the board member another, CEO, but you got to do all the hats as a small, mid-sized business owner and be open to that. But thank your stars that you could create jobs and give opportunities to people, and what you make here, and you created, people all over the country and the world are having. That's a huge opportunity, and that's great. 2 people bought their first homes. We from renting 3 generations. First car, a daughter getting married. This 6'6" man was crying and thanking Sprecher and us. I mean, that is, where do you get that? You know, that's amazing. Yeah.
Well, that's certainly a good sentiment to end on. Sharad, Chadha, thanks for sharing some of your insights. We really appreciate it.